I can't tell you anything you don't know. We live in the trenches out there. We fight. We try not to be killed. Sometimes we are. That's all. No.
In this video, we are going to go over the bottom half of the World War I Mysteries and Obscurities iceberg. If you want to see the first part before watching this one, you can check it out on my channel or in the description. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's get right into it. Lost Battalion refers to 9 companies that were part of the US 77th Division in the US Army. Thinking they were supported by a French division on the left and another US division on the right, they pushed deep into the Argonne Forest in October of 1918. Unbeknownst to them, the other 2 divisions were stalled, and they came under heavy German attacks. In the next 6 days, 197 of their men were killed in action, and another 150 were taken prisoner or missing. Charami was the name of a carrier pigeon used by the US to deliver over 600 messages in France. Charami ties back to the Lost Battalion as he was used by them in the battle where on October 4th, he was shot in the breast and leg. He managed to still deliver the message he was carrying, which led to 194 of the Lost Battalion men being rescued. He initially survived his wounds and received many medals, but later complications from these wounds would lead to his passing. When the Russian Revolution began to break out during World War I, Communist leader Vladimir Lenin was in Switzerland and wanted to go back to Russia quickly. The problem was that all the countries leading there were in war, making it impossible. The German leadership would offer Lenin safe passage back to Russia, and in turn, he would take control of Russia using the revolutions and pull them out of World War I. Nurse Margaret Mall was a nurse from Scotland who treated wounded soldiers in World War I. What's so interesting about her is that a random briefcase was found at the University of Arbate that contained her items including diaries, notes, newspaper clippings, and it gave a good look into what her life was like during the war. Not much is known about her except that her brother was killed in action, which she wrote in her diary where she also talked about being reluctant to treat enemy soldiers after his passing. It is believed she still helped him though, considering she had letters from all types of soldiers thanking her, including letters written in German. The Florentine diamond is a 137-carat yellow diamond originating from India that was around since the 1400s and has quite the lengthy history. To make a long story short, it's been passed around quite a bit by many powerful people, including popes and monarchs. After the fall of Austria in 1918, the Emperor Charles I of Austria took the diamond with him into exile. While there, it was stolen from the Emperor and taken into South America where it disappeared. Rumors claim it was taken into the United States in the 1920s and was cut up and resold. In April of 1915, 3 Allied soldiers in Belgium claimed they saw an unidentified Canadian soldier who was crucified by bayonets to either a barn or a tree. Sworn statements were even made by some soldiers about seeing the same thing, but some of the statements included seeing the bodies in places the Germans never even occupied. As you can see, there are already contradictions in the story, and no bodies were ever recovered or even found. Of course, the story spread like wildfires though, and became a big propaganda piece around the Allied nations. The mystery of Celtic wood refers to a strange occurrence that took place during the Battle of Pol Capel in October of 1917. Soldiers from the British and Australian Army were to attack German positions in the area, and 85 men of the 10th Battalion of the 1st Australian Division were tasked with going into the Celtic wood. Only 14 men returned, and claimed the other 70 just walked into thin air, and no evidence of these men was ever seen again. While many may think when hearing this that the 14 must have just got separated from the others who went ahead and died in battle, which is what official Allied reports claim, no bodies or equipment from these men were ever found in the area. Even weirder, German reports from the area never mentioned seeing or fighting these men either. Rumors claim that they just walked into the mist and were never seen again. Attack of the Dead Men refers to the Battle of Ozawijk Fortress. Germans heavily attacked the Russian fortress with explosives filled with poisonous gases such as chlorine and bromine. Having no defenses against this, the Russians were mostly killed by the gases, and when the German soldiers advanced into the fortress, they saw Russian soldiers throwing up blood and bits of organs while their flesh fell apart, all caused by the gas attacks. This caused the German soldiers to freak out and run away, so the remaining Russian soldiers hopped on their machine guns and opened fire. This incident, along with the other German group attacking the fortress accidentally gassing themselves by moving in too quickly, allowed for the Russians to hold on to the fort for a short bit longer. "17-year-old Private John Parr is believed to be the first British soldier to die during World War I. He and another private were sent ahead to scout for German positions when they came across a German patrol. A rifle battle ensued, and Parr held the Germans back while his companion went to report what was happening. No one is certain on how he died, and the leading theory is that he was killed by a patrol or even hit by friendly fire. The British had to retreat and leave his body behind, which made confirmation even harder. His death was not recognized until much later in the conflict. It is reported that German soldiers who came across his body buried it, but it was later moved to a military cemetery. In March 1919, 15,000 Canadian soldiers stationed in a military complex in Wales started a riot. The riot started since the Canadian soldiers were kept in poor conditions, were not receiving their pay, and were being used as forced labor by British officers running the complex. 5 men were killed in the riot. In October 1917, the Sabrina, along with 23 crew members, set sail to deliver coal from UK to France. 2 days later, the ship was found on Rosal Point in France completely intact, except no crew members were there, and they would never be seen again. Scuttling is the action of sinking a ship. The scuttling of the German fleet refers to the German fleet that was at Scapa Flow towards the end of the war. Worried that the negotiations would go wrong and that the British would come to seize their ships for their own use, Admiral Ludwig von Reuter decided to sink his own fleet. They managed to sink 52 of their 74 ships before the Royal Navy could stop them. The UB-85 was a German U-boat that was used during World War I. While on a mission one day, the submarine suddenly surfaced and was quickly captured by the Royal Navy. Members of the Royal Navy were confused though, as members of the UB-85 seemed glad to be captured. It was then revealed by the captain of the submarine that they had just got done fighting a sea monster while down below, but had managed to escape alive. Investigation into the incident revealed that the crew had actually gone down without closing one of the hatches, causing the submarine to sink. It is speculated that the captain of the submarine did this on purpose because he was upset they would not install a heater in his cabin and made the story up as a cover. Bertha Trost was a German woman who had moved to London and had lived there for 20 years, even owning 2 shops. When the war broke out, her son, who lived in Germany, fought in the war on the German side and was captured by the British. Hearing this, Bertha used her connections in Germany to try and find out more information about her son. When the British learned about this, they labeled Bertha a German spy and forcibly deported her from England. The artist J.M. refers to a British soldier who was stationed in Belgium and France between 1917 and 1918. He had a sketchbook of over 130 sketches and paintings that he signed with the initials J.M. Not much else is known about him except that he survived the war, as one of the sketches is labeled 1920, and that he gave the sketchbook to his daughter named Adele, as stated on the dedication page. The German corpse factory is an extremely notorious piece of propaganda used by the British, showing the Kaiser telling a boy that he will be used dead or alive while pointing to a corpse factory. The story that goes along with it is that the British blockades had caused the Germans to run out of fat, which was used for candles and other objects, and that the Germans had resorted to taking their own fallen comrades' bodies and grinding them up to use for their fat. This was of course untrue, and was used to try and get the Chinese to join the war against Germany. The Mafia, with 2 Fs, was a Czech secret group who abided to similar rules as the Sicilian Mafia, hence the name. The objective of the group was to take the Emperor of Austria-Hungary out of power, but they were discovered by officials and sentenced to death. The Lost Sandringhams were members of the 5th Territorial Battalion and the Royal Norfolk Regiment who were tasked with protecting King Edward VII at the Sandringham Palace. When going into battle against the Turkish during the Dardanelles campaign, the group simply disappeared and were never seen again. The battle they went into was a bloody one, so it is presumed that they were all killed in action. This one is exactly what it sounds like, and it's kind of hilarious. The boomerang grenade was invented in 1915 by G.V. Russell, an Australian engineer. It was prepared to go into use in 1916, but Lieutenant Colonel R. Law turned down the invention, calling it too erratic. The stab in the back myth was an anti-Semitic myth going around Germany after the First World War, claiming the reason Germany lost the war was because the Jewish community sold them out to the Allies. This myth was heavily perpetuated by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis during World War II and the Holocaust. Canadian veteran F.J. Newhouse claimed in 1919 that while in Mons, there was a giant canine-like creature made by the Germans that would attack and eat British soldiers in no man's land. He claims the hound was made by a German doctor who took the brain of an insane person and put it in a dog's body. The myth gained further traction when supposedly soldiers on a patrol of no man's land were found dead with bite marks, and later that night howling could be heard. Of course, none of these stories have been confirmed. Private James Brown of the British Army had left London for France in 1914 to serve in World War I. When he left behind his Irish Terrier with his wife, but according to his wife, the dog was inconsolable. One day, the dog disappeared, and despite his wife's best effort, the dog could not be found. 2 weeks later, Private Brown would be returning to his living quarters when someone in the battalion called out to him that they had his dog. Confused, he went and looked, and sure enough, they had his dog. No one is sure how the dog got from England to France, but he became popular among the battalion and was used to clear rats out of the trenches. Prince would serve the war before returning to London and passing away in 1921. I'm surprised I haven't heard about this story because it's rather funny. In California during the early 1900s, squirrels were seen as pests who would destroy crops and annoy farmers. So in 1918, Horticulture Commissioner George H. Heck called upon school children to form armies with their classmates and kill squirrels. The effort had a budget of $40,000, which was used to print hundreds of thousands of anti-squirrel posters. Some of these posters included a recipe for homemade poison to make and use on squirrels. The campaign was at least somewhat successful, as children around California submitted 104,509 squirrel tales to confirm their kills. That is part 2 and the bottom of the World War I Mysteries and Obscurities Iceberg complete. If you would like to see the first half of the iceberg, go check that out on my channel. I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been Night Stories, and I'll see you guys next time.